Salutations readers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nkechi, and for today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in the past 2 months. So, yeah, January, February, reading months. Lots of weird mini reading slumps. I think my biggest one was definitely in January because January just felt so long and also a lot of things was going on. And then February was a little bit better, at least. So go me for that. But I still struggled for sure. How weird stop go as far as my reading. But I do want to at least quickly talk about these books at least. So we're just going to get right into it. If you want to know anything about certain thoughts on certain books, I do recommend just going to my video description down below for any vlogs, reviews, or anything like that. So I'm just going to quickly just get right into stats. I'm just going to get to the stats of both months, and then I'll get through kind of quickly on DNFs, pause books, and books read. We're going to get right through this because we got a lot of books y'all to talk about. So in January, I read 7 books. DNF'd 8 books, read 1,894 pages, listened to 31.5 hours, and my average rating was 4.13 stars. Here's a graphic right here as far as all my wrap-up stats and all that stuff from Storygraph, so thanks to Storygraph for that. And also you get a peek on the highest rated books of the month as well. Next up, for February, I read 10 books. DNF 6, read 1,728 pages, listened to 46.88 hours. My average rating was 4.05 stars. Here's a graphic here as far as my stats if any of you all care. Started with a peek on the highest rated books of the month. So as you can tell, with some quick math, I read pretty much about 17 books in 2 months. That's a lot of books to talk about, and I DNF'd in total 14. Yeah, that's a lot. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm gonna speed run through quickly on DNFs, books that I paused, all that. So let's start with the books I paused. First up, I paused Chain All Stars. Not in the mood for it right now. I'll come back to it whenever I'm actually really in the headspace for it. Then I paused these 2 books, Blood at the Root and Rebel Sisters. I'll come back to these books whenever I'm into it. This one, I don't know what happened with my brain, wasn't in the mood for it. And this one because I was not a fan of the audiobook, so I'll have to come back to this when I'm in the mood to read it physically. So we shall see about these 2 books, but I want to continue reading them whenever I can. So that is all the books that I have paused for now. Next up for books I did not finish. Quickly, let's speed run. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. DNF at 16%. Very boring. Should have been called The Boring Life of Addie Snooze. I stand and I will die on that hill. Fredo's Heir. I DNF'd at 8%. Check out the binary reading vlog of all the books, of the binary books that came out fall 2024. Same thing for Strange Beasts. I DNF'd at 18%. That vlog will have my reasons why I DNF'd those 2 books. Save Me Stranger, short stories. I got as advanced listening copy thanks to Macmillan Audio. DNF'd at 21%. Not for me, don't care for the audiobook or the author's writing style. House Moving Castle, DNF'd at 42%. Check out my House Moving Castle coded reading vlog for why I DNF'd the book at that very far end. Watermoon, I DNF'd at 41%. I already actually have a DNF arc review video up on the channel if you are more curious about my reasons why. But Theory of Dreaming, which is the sequel to A Study in Drowning, I got it as an e-arc from Harper Teen. DNF'd at 52%. This book did not need to exist. I don't think that we needed a sequel to A Study in Drowning. I do have a review post on my Instagram for more thoughts on this if you're ever curious. Silver Nitrate, my first Sylvia Morgan Garcia that I DNF'd at 42%. Not the horror I'm interested in. I did not care too much on the characters, so I was like, I'm a quit. The Legend of Venica, this I got as an e-arc thanks to Harper Voyager, DNF'd at 9%. Did not care for the character voice of the character that we're following here. It's the first book in the Divine Dancers duology. I might return to it in the future with the audiobook, but honestly, I don't really think I will. Next up, I DNF'd Almost There, A Twisted Tale by Farah Roshan. This is pretty much a twist on what if Tiana made a deal that changed everything with Dr. Facilier. Did not care for the direction of this one. I think I DNF'd around 15%. Don't really care. How to Pronounce Knife. I DNF'd this one at 31%. I tried via audio. This one was recommended to me, I think, 2 years ago from 6 friends or something like that. Did not care for the short story collection as a whole. I didn't care for the writing style or the narration voices or anything. So, moved on. Our Infinite Fates. I got it to the advanced listening copy from Macmillan Audio. I don't remember if I requested this or they just sent it to me unsolicited. Either way, I DNF'd at 10%. It is a book that's compared to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And like I said about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, that was a snooze fest, and Our Infinite Fates do not really care, unfortunately. It was also, though, compared to This Is How You Lose a Time War, though, so that intrigued me a bit. But yeah, I did not care. I might try this book again, who knows, but genuinely speaking, I don't think I will come back to it. Go Ahead in the Rain. This is a Hanifa Durkheeb essay, memoir-like collection based on talking about a tribe called Quest, which is a rap group from someplace, I forgot where. DNF to 31%. I would prefer to listen to this audiobook if Hanifa Durkheeb narrated the book himself, but he did not, so I'm just gonna pass up on it right from there. Paladin's Strength, which is the sequel to Paladin's Grace, the second book in the State of Steel series. I am debating on just DNF and this series as a whole. I do think this plot here was just kind of like really slow. I did not particularly care to read more about Ishtavan and Clara's romance, so I'm just gonna pass on this one. Let me know if I can just skip over to the third book, because I'm still a little bit curious on the main plot, the main plot for this series, but I don't care too much on if it's just gonna be very slow and boring. Like, I need a little bit more stake going on in the stories, okay? I DNF'd at like 11% via audio. All right, so that's it. That's all the books I DNF'd and paused in the past 2 months. So I'm gonna try to go quickly on the books that I have read as well, and then let y'all know as far as any reading vlogs or something that I've read them in. First up, I started off the entire year with Mexican Gothic by Several Garcia. This is historical horror. Takes place in 1950s Mexico. Yes, Gothic horror as well. So give it like What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, Starland. Give this one 5 stars. This is my second Several Garcia work, and I highly recommend it. I do have to say though, definitely check out Content Warnings. My gosh, y'all, my gosh. The horror is horrifying, and it's very gross and disgusting. I love you some body horror though. This book, love me the body horror for it. There's also a lot of graphic violence, sexual assault, and sexism and misogyny. There's definitely some incestuous things going on with that family that our main girl Noemi has to be dealing with. There's some incestuous stuff right there. So if you ain't interested about reading anything regarding incest, stay clear from this book. If you don't care for body horror, stay clear from here. If you don't want any hallucinatory instances of sexual assault that may or may not actually have happened, stay away from this book. Other than that, I do recommend reading Mexican Gothic if not already. Especially if you've not read anything of Several Garcia's horror. This is definitely my first horror from her. It will not be my last, so yeah, I recommend. Next up, I read Januaries by Olivia Blake. This is a short story collection of various fantasy stories that were published previously from maybe other anthologies, and also several actually, that were never been published or seen before. So I do actually kind of recommend this. I got us an advanced listening copy from the publisher, and I purchased this physical copy for myself because I actually really did enjoy reading this short story collection. It is definitely like a mixtape for sure, like the dedication says. It's also split into 4 parts based on the seasons, so despite the title, it is not like a wintry fantasy short story collection as I thought it was going to be. Also, I did really enjoy most of these short stories. There were a few that I was like, didn't really like, or I'm like, about. There's only one that I did now, just the second to last one called Chaos Theory. But I did enjoy a lot of them. I think my favorite short story in here is actually called The House, which is pretty much actually, fun fact, wedding vows that the author wrote for someone's wedding. I forgot if it was a friend or her own. I don't remember, but it's actual wedding vows. So loved it for sure. Definitely my favorite. But I also really did enjoy The Wish Bridge, which was the very first short story in this collection. So recommend it, 4 stars, high recommend. I did make a review post on my Instagram for more thoughts if you're curious. Then these next 3 books, I actually read them in a reading vlog. I think, what was it? Was it a reading vlog or was it a video diary? Actually, it was in a video diary that I read these books in. So I read Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear, Sab Abu Tawa. This is a poetry collection written by a Palestinian poet, and it's pretty much about being Palestinian and living in the Israeli occupation, and also being Palestinian outside of Palestine as well. Definitely do recommend it. I didn't formally rate it, but if I were to rate it, because I wasn't sure how I'm supposed to rate poetry, since it is nonfiction. But if I were really to rate it, I think I'll rate it about 4.5 stars. It's very much emotional, very much reflective, and it was really short. So yeah, recommend it. The Haunting of Tram Car 015. That one is a novella set in the Dead Gen universe. I liked it. I enjoyed it. 4 star. Didn't love the main characters much, but the mystery itself was pretty solid. Graveyard Shift by Amal Rio. I kind of like this one. I think I'm giving it like a 3.25, somewhere around there. It was fine. It's a horror thriller. I think it's a little too short, or it was too fast for how short it was. I don't know. I don't think Amal Rio is quite the author for me as far as novellas or anything like that. I know this is like her second work that she's published, but as far as novella, I don't think this is a very successful novella personally. Next up, I did finish reading Maid and the Crocodile by Jordan Fueco. This is a standalone fantasy romance set in the world of Raybear duology. I did read this one for a House Moving Castle coded reading vlog, so if you want to know my thoughts on the Maid and the Crocodile, also with some thoughts on Redemptor even, since I read in that vlog as well, I do recommend checking out that vlog. But I did love this one. 5 stars, top book of the year so far. And then I ended the month with Hammajang Luck by Makana Yamamoto, I think. This is an adult queer sci-fi. This is also a heist story. It's a debut novel written by a Native Hawaiian author. And we do have a slew cast of characters that are Native Hawaiian or come from Native Hawaiian families. Also with trans / non-binary representation, along with butch and femme lesbians. So if you're here for that, this is the book for y'all, okay? The lesbians got a heist story in space, okay? Here for it. And you know what the heist was? Stealing from a trillionaire. That's right, a trillionaire, which, yes, we're here for it. Steal from that bitch, okay? Because what the hell? How do you make that much money to be a trillionaire? I still am baffled by billionaires. I'm still baffled by that. A trillionaire is even more baffling. So yeah, highly recommend. I did enjoy it. I definitely do recommend the audiobook. I was able to listen to the audiobook thanks to my Spotify premium hours, so recommend the audiobook. It was a really, really good time. And especially with the instances with the Hawaiian pidgin English usage in the dialogue, it was very much helpful to hear that on the audiobook than like looking with my eyeballs, honestly. So recommend it for at least for that. But also it does feature a toxic, messy, sapphic relationship. And not gonna lie, I kind of liked it. But I will have to say though that the ending was pretty rushed. And the heist part of the story, I think was pretty standard heist story. But then again, it makes sense because, well, you're trying to steal from a trillionaire. And there's a lot of like machinations that go into doing a heist for that you cannot fail at. So makes sense. But I do recommend this one. 3.75 stars. Highly recommend checking it out if you have not checked it out already. The book is already out. It came out on January 14th. All right, next up, we're gonna start talking about books that I read in February. So first up is The Oleander Sword by Tasha Siri. I buddy read this book with Nat from Something Bookish This Way Comes. Loved it. Second book in the Burning Kingdoms trilogy. So it's the sequel to The Jasmine Throne. Loved it more than The Jasmine Throne. I mean, this was just so good. Now that we don't have to do much of setup for the series, we can really just get right into it. So this is very much a good meat into the series, and I loved it, y'all. Highly recommend. I gave this 4.25 stars. I think it got a little bit slow in the middle, and I particularly didn't love a part of how Priya's, I feel like, character arc was a little bit in the back burner. But I understand it though, because Molly needs to really shine here. But I am so excited to read The Lotus Empire and to start that buddy read actually. So yes, highly recommend this series if you have not already. Then I read Modern Divination by Isabel Agajanian. This is the first book in the Spells for Life and Death duology. It's also a debut novel. It was originally self-published and turned traditionally published through Pan Macmillan. I got it as an e-arc from Pan Macmillan as well, so it's already out in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, all these places, pretty much outside the United States on January 30th. It will be available in the United States on May 6th. So got a few more months for that. This is an adult contemporary queer fantasy romance that follows 2 rival witches who are being hunted by a witch hunter, and they must take refuge in a small town. So we have Aurelia Schwartz and Theodore Ingram, who have to kind of work together and make sure they stay alive and not get killed from this witch hunter. It's very slow paced. It is purple prosy, kind of like Olivia Blake, but I really enjoy this one, y'all. I read it for my Howl's Moving Castle coded reading vlog, so if you want to know my more thoughts on this book, check out that vlog down below. I give this one also 4.25 stars. Really enjoyed it. I do wish the plot was a little bit stronger though, but I do recommend it if you're here for a slow burn academic to rivals romance between 2 bisexual characters. Next up, I read Sister Snake. This I read for Dante's Inferno that I could not do a reading vlog for because I was in a really weird reading slump kind of thing, so that went down the drain right there. But this is a contemporary queer lit fic reimagined retelling of a Chinese legend, of the Chinese folktale of the legend of the white snake, which I'm not really intimately familiar with, but I've heard of this legend a little bit. So we do follow two sisters. One of them is a white snake named Sue. The other is a green snake named Emerald in this contemporary setting. I think Emerald lived in New York, and then Sue lived in Singapore. So yeah, it's pretty much about their sisterly bond and being immortal snake viper beings living in human bodies. I did actually kind of enjoy the story. I wasn't sure on how I was going to really feel about it throughout because the bond between them is actually kind of toxic, not gonna lie. There's a lot there's a lot of like things that really, there's a lot of things that honestly really irritated me between the two of them, but I did believe that they were pretty solid. Like sisters, even though they have a very dysfunctional but also toxic bond between them, but I did at least like on how they cared for each other at least. I also did listen to it via audio, and I do like the audiobook as well. I did think it was actually sort of funny. I didn't particularly love the humor a little. I didn't particularly love it, but the humor was fine. Like I didn't feel irritated by this humor, but I do not particularly love the humor as much, so I give it 4 stars. But I still recommend it though, and I would not mind like owning it physically if I ever got a chance to. I'm actually pretty curious actually to see if this author will have any more books in the future. I think this is a debut. It came out in December of last year. So yeah, I hope if any of y'all are curious about this, I do recommend it if you have not checked it out already. Next up, Murder by Memory. I don't remember the author's name. I got this as an advanced listening copy from Macmillan Audio. This is a cozy murder mystery sci-fi novella. I think features a sapphic main character, I think. Honestly, I don't particularly care for this novella as much. I just rated it 3 stars because the novella helped me to get out of a reading slump. Other than that, I don't really care for it. It's actually pretty short. I think the audiobook was like nearly 2.5 hours. I was like, okay, this is really short for novella. It's probably either this narrator just read really fast, or this book is actually shorter, or this novella is actually shorter than like 100 pages. I wouldn't be surprised. Or maybe just above 100 pages. Yeah, but there's not much high stakes or anything in here. Again, it's very much just low stake murder mystery, but I don't quite care for it. It's fine though. It's truly fine. It's a solid narrator. It's the first book in a novella trilogy, and I don't care to read the rest of these novellas whenever they come out. And then after Murder by Memory, I read Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. This is Nnedi Okorafor's literary fiction debut. It also has a sci-fi twist to it, but we'll get to that. This is a story within the story narrative where we have Zelu, who's a disabled Nigerian-American woman in Chicago who finds out that she is fired from her abject professor position at this university, and that her recent book proposal was rejected while she's at the wedding for one of her sisters. So pretty much down on her luck, very much at a low point. And then one night she writes the first draft of Rusted Robots, which is a sci-fi novel that's pretty much set in a futuristic apocalyptic Lagos, Nigeria, where Earth is basically desolate, only run by AI and robots and stuff. So yeah, the book gets a lot of acclaim, a lot of fame, and then the story as we go on, and we also get excerpts of Rusted Robots as well. We start seeing the lines start to blur between what's real and what's not. I will have to say though that this book, I have quite mixed feelings on, honestly. Very strongly mixed feelings. Like I couldn't really say this is I don't think this is a bad book, but I don't think it's as great as a book either. I know there's a lot of people who have read it and really enjoyed it, but for me, I am such in the middle that I'm just like, sure, it's good, but not as good. Personally for me. I think I mentioned it in like my reading sprints with my mom towards the end of February, but I really had some issues with the length of this book. I think both stories, the Death of the Author storyline with Zelu and also Rusted Robot storyline with Ankara, I think both of those stories were very slow and kind of gotten pretty boring, but especially by the time we got to the middle of the story, because this book here is literally like over 400 plus pages. And yes, I do have some tabs here because there's parts of it that I was really annotating, and in that second half I just was going on my Kindle and I just wanted this book to be over. I didn't even want to bother annotating at all. Because I was kind of engaged for that first half, but then by the second half, I was like, okay, can this book be done? Like, I really wanted it to be done. And by the time I got to the very end, sure, there's a twist at the very end, don't get me wrong, but did I care for the twist? No. I was like, oh, great, I'm done with the book. Like, that was my first thought. And I was like, dang, I was not having a great time in that second half. It was just too long, and Zelu's storyline had a lot of family drama, which I do understand, and I can kind of relate to, since Zelu is portrayed as a Nigerian American person, and I can see that because I'm also Nigerian American myself, but it's just a lot, and I had such headaches with her family. My gosh, the blatant ableism honestly was so headache-inducing. Like, my gosh, it hurt my head. We do get excerpts though of interviews from her siblings, her parents, and anyone else that was close to her or knew Zelu, since she, you know, became pretty famous thanks to her book. It helped me at least a little bit to get more insight on what they think of Zelu. But I don't know if it was quite enough for me to really forgive them for a lot of their blatant ableism and their stuff, but I can tell that they still care for her, and that Zelu also cares for her family as well, despite how they treat her. But she just wanted them to really see her as like a person and not someone to protect, to baby, to pity on. But also though, I had issues though with Zelu, not because of like how impulsive she is and how reckless she can be, but her unchecked, blatant, internalized ableism. Like, I just could not get behind the fact that her internalized ableism was like not it went unchecked, and I did not appreciate that. And it's something I have kind of noticed with the few books I've read by Nnedi Okorafor. There is some sort of like internalized ableism within the narrative or from the characters that goes unchecked. I didn't particularly love that part of the story. I do think the ending, the very end, I think the twist there maybe should have happened just a little bit sooner. Definitely should be a little bit longer. I mean, not longer. It definitely should have been a little shorter. Yeah, I don't know. I like the concept here, but I just got really tired, honestly. I do recommend, though, checking out Steph from Coffee Over Apples. She did have a book club discussion on this book, and she did provide some insight as far as this essay called Death of the Author. Not the book, this particular book, but they had a discussion on this book particularly. But she did mention about this essay from Barth's and the meaning of that and how it relates to this book as well. So yeah, do I recommend it? I don't really know. Let me say this. If you want to read it, you can read it. I am literally part of the minority for those who did not enjoy this book as much as a lot of people have already have. It's already pretty beloved already. So if you want to read it, take my thoughts on this with a grain of salt, okay? But I didn't particularly love it. So after that, I read A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole. This is an adult contemporary romance. That's the first book in the Reluctant Royal series, where we're following Naledi, who is a graduate student in a university in New York City, and she meets this guy named Jamal, who's actually secretly a Thabiso, who is a prince of this fictional African country, and is also supposed to be his betrothed wife or something. I was surprised, honestly, on how much I really enjoyed this one. I do think it's a little bit slow, not gonna lie, as far as the romance is concerned, because Naledi and Thabiso, who really ends up mostly being Jamal, honestly, for Naledi's sake, he pretends to be this Jamal guy so that he doesn't try to like spring on the fact that, hey, she's also a royalty herself. Like, she's an orphan. Like, her parents died when she was young, so she was an orphan living in New York for as long as she can remember. Yeah, and she has no idea that she has even any actual extended family that lives in a whole different country. So yeah, I had problems, honestly, with this whole secrecy thing and reluctance of giving information. I really hate that when that happens in any sort of capacity, for whatever reason. But I definitely don't like it in a romance. So I did struggle with my enjoyment for it, but I did appreciate, though, how Alyssa Cole handled the lie reveal scene and the emotional impact and the hurt that Naledi felt after she found out the truth. So I personally really appreciate the story for that much. So I give the book 3.75 stars. I do think, though, that the plot of the story towards the very end was really rushed, especially when we actually do get the light reveal scene. It happened pretty late, and then when Nelly does find out about her family and stuff, I do find like that storyline a little bit there gets rushed really quick. Like it gets rushed really quickly towards the end. So that's a little unfortunate. I wish that it got a little bit more breathing room, especially for how slow the main romance part was anyway. So we couldn't have paced the ending a little bit more. I don't know. But nonetheless, though, I will be reading the rest of the series. I'm very curious to read the the other two books, and also some novellas and stuff, short story or whatever, in between books 2 and 3. And then next up, I read The Potency of Ungovernable Impulses by Malcolm Older. I got it as an e-arc from Tor.com. This novel, yes, this is a novel actually, does not come out until June 10th. So I actually read it pretty early on, and I really did enjoy it. Now this is the third book in the Investigations of Masa and Paletti series. The first two books were actually novellas, so this is the first full-fledged novel within this series. So it does make things a little bit hard for me as far as my enjoyment at first because of how long it was, and especially since Masa and Paletti are not together for the first half, which definitely hindered my enjoyment when I realized that. I was like, I don't think we're gonna get Masa much in this first half, are we? Maybe we'll get it in the second half, maybe, because I wasn't sure. So we do deal with Paletti for the most part for that first half, basically, because Masa has been dealing with depression, some sort of melancholy. She has, I think it's been mentioned that she has these melancholic inflictions every once in a while, but this is the first one that's actually been portrayed on page, that she's dealing with some sort of depression. And I think the way that's portrayed is actually pretty, fine. I think it's a pretty accurate depiction of it, honestly. And then, as far as Paletti finding out about certain things, especially since Masa does eventually come into play within the main storyline, and then how that deals with them, deals with Paletti emotionally as far as all that, and the hurt there, I think it was pretty fair as well. I did find the mystery part definitely pretty slow. This series is kind of slow as far as solving the mystery and finding all the things, but especially more so in this one because first of all it is longer, but also that this is not really like a murder mystery. No one was actually murdered in this novel. It's more of, I think the mystery in this one's about a colleague of Paletti that was accused of plagiarism. So yeah. And as far as the reasoning behind the accusation of the plagiarism and who's behind it, I don't think it quite made sense towards the end, and the motivation wasn't quite there, so it's not great, but I had a good time for the most part. So I give it 4.25 stars. I do recommend reading this series if you have not already. The first one is The Mimicking of Known Successes. The second book is The Imposition of Unnecessary Obstacles. And then with this third book here. So yeah, long titles, but I actually really thought that this would be the last one, but no, there's actually going to be 2 more works within this series. So I'm actually pretty excited for that, actually, because I don't want it to quite end just yet. So very, very glad that I got this from Tor.com and look forward to more installments. Next up, Needy Little Things by Chanel Desmour. This I got as a advanced listening copy from Macmillan Audio. It came out early February. This is a young adult speculative mystery novel that follows Soraya, who has this gift, this ability to assess people's needs. And once fulfilled, something happens to them. Maybe they get saved from something, or I don't know, something actually happens. And then there's this alternative music festival that her and her friends go to, and one of her best friends, Deja, ends up being missing. So this is kind of like a missing black girl story here. And I did put this book on pause, because I started it, I think, sometime in January, and I put it on pause for a solid 2 to 3 weeks, because I already read Delicious Monsters, and this book was giving me Delicious Monsters, and it was a lot, okay? It was just a lot, and I had to put the book down, and then I come back to it, and I was able to marathon all the way through. This book had me hooked on, the very first chapter. My gosh, this is a debut novel, too, and I'm like, my gosh, can you write more books? But dang, though, that would definitely hurt. And then the mystery behind, what happened to Deja, I was actually kind of mad on the revelation towards the very end, because I was like, wait a minute, cause yo, the revelation when we actually get to the truth, I said some. Anyway, a lot. This is a lot. There's a lot emotionally going on with that particular revelation. Not gonna lie, it was a lot emotionally. It also made me really feel bad, really feel for Soraya though, because the girl was going through it. I mean, a lot of people were going through it, but she was going through it. I don't think I particularly cared for a particular romantic interest she was getting with a particular guy. What's his name? I forgot what his name was. But I personally think that particular romance was not necessary, but whatever. It didn't fully hinder my enjoyment, but I don't think it was really necessary. I give this book 4.5 stars though. Highly recommend. Next up, The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. Yes, I finally read this book. This one is a World War I historical fantasy standalone that we're following Laura, who was a discharged nurse who's trying to find out what happened to her brother Freddie while he's in a soldier in World War I for Canada. I listened to it via audio, and honestly, I highly recommend the audiobook. Oh my gosh, I love the audiobook so much. Not because of like any particular like performance, like any special effects, but mostly for the narrators, honestly. Jenny Lavoie and Michael Crouch, I listened to audiobooks from their own narration, and I really like on how both those narrators narrated Laura and Freddie's stories, because it actually is dual POV. We do get Laura perspective and Freddie's perspective. I really loved on how Jenny Lavoie narrated Laura's perspective, and also Michael Crouch narrated Freddie's perspectives. I just really enjoyed it, and I also was really invested in Freddie's storyline, as like when he's right there in the front lines being a soldier during World War I. I'm not really one for like World War stories, whether it's World War I, World War II, mostly because I just don't care to read it, not gonna lie. But this is my very first one of World War I, and I gotta say, I was invested. Like the narrators, but I was just invested, honestly, to see like how Laura's gonna find out what happened to Freddie. And I was also very curious about what's going on with Freddie, because the fantasy stuff actually is more so on Freddie's storyline more than anything. We get instances of, well, do we get instances in Laura? Yeah, we do. But it's mostly through Freddie's storyline. I don't quite remember what's in the synopsis, but there is a particular person that goes around following the soldiers, and there's like this magical hotel kind of thing that they can just go to, like kind of being in oblivion to forget about the war, basically. And yeah, there's also a very queer story going on with Freddie's storyline as well. And not gonna lie, I was pretty invested in, so that also helped with my enjoyment. I will admit, it helped with my enjoyment. But yeah, I did still like Laura's perspective though, as far as a discharged army nurse, because that's also a perspective as far as wars that I'm not even really familiar with at all. I don't know, I really like the perspectives. I liked how Catherine Arden wrote about these stories. I do think there was a little bit lost towards the middle as far as some interest. There's also particular romantic interest for Laura that I don't think is bad. It's not really bad or anything. Do I particularly care for it as much as like compared to Freddie? Not so much, but it was fine for her, at least for her romantic interest. Yeah, and then towards the very, very end, I think it was kind of fine. Yeah, I think it was trying to wrap up pretty nicely towards the end, I think a little bit. I do think I will try the Winter Night trilogy again, so I might try the Bear and the Nightingale in the future. We shall see though, but I'll just say, this one was really enjoyable. 4.5 stars, do recommend. And then I ended February on a really high note with The River Has Roots by Amal Al-Multar. I got it as an e-arc from Tor.com and an advanced listening copy from Macmillan Audio, which, oh my gosh, y'all, I recommend the fucking audiobook. I'm recording this on Tuesday, March 4th. The audiobook for The River Has Roots comes out today. I recommend checking out the audiobook. So what is this about? This is Amal Al-Multar's solo debut novel. Actually, it's not a novel. It's actually a novella, actually. It's a novella that follows two sisters, Esther and Isabel, who have a very tight sisterly bond, and they live in this town that's pretty much very much on the edge of fairyland, or Arcadia, specifically. And there is this person named Rin that Esther falls for, and they do have a nice romance, not gonna lie, it's a really nice, cute romance, but it's not going to overshadow the love and bond between the two sisters though. Like, the core of the story is the bond between the sisters, but we do have a romance between Esther and Rin. And yeah, it's pretty much about that, going through life, growing up, but also dealing with the fact that nothing is gonna tear these sisters apart, basically. And I really love it how very fairy tale like it is. The fantasy part is very ethereal, I don't particularly fully understand the magic and how this whole grammar thing works, the grammar magic. Don't fully understand how it works, but look, if you are familiar with like language and grammar rules, you're gonna understand the grammar. You're gonna understand how the grammar magic works. For me personally, I don't get it. So, but yeah, I definitely just really liked it. Honestly, it was so ethereal. I loved. Oh my gosh, Mortar's writing was so ethereal and lush and gorgeous. My gosh, I loved it. It's not quite purple prosy, but it's very ethereal, very much fairy tale like. I do recommend the audiobook because we do get instances of like, it has really nice special effects. Like you're hearing the river lists flowing. You also hear like in a market stand some whispers and voices and stuff. But most importantly though, you do get music within the audiobook. You get harp and flute music that's actually performed by Mortar and her sister. And we get harp, flute, and we also get singing as well from both the sisters. Like, that's also included in the audiobook. Like, oh my gosh, y'all, I highly recommend. We still have the main narrator, but then we also get the singing. I mean, I know for some people that might be a little bit more overstimulated with all the sounds within the audiobook, which I can see that being maybe a problem for some people, but I really do recommend the audiobook though. If you can listen to audiobooks, it might be a little bit overstimulating within the music and the Maid they were going through, especially with the singing parts. It might be a bit much, but I do recommend listening to the audiobook. Like, my gosh, y'all. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. And also as well, within my e-arc and the advanced listening copy, we do get an excerpt of just one short story from Amal Al-Motar's upcoming short story collection. I don't know what it's called, but we do get a short story. And that was what makes the audiobook and the e-arc a little bit longer. Like, the actual novella is 104 pages, and I think the audiobook is just maybe a little bit over 2.5 hours, but it is like a nearly 3-4 hour long audiobook and nearly a 150 page novella, because there's this 40-page excerpt or 1 hour excerpt of a short story that's in an upcoming short story collection that I'm so excited for. Like, oh my gosh, yo, I love the short story that's included within this novella. Highly recommend. I love this book. I knew that I was gonna love it, hence why I requested a e-arc and an advanced listening copy, because I was like, you know what, why not? And I'm so glad I did. I give this book 4.75 stars. It's the highest rated I've read for the month of February. Unfortunately, no 5 stars, but 4.75 stars. I didn't give it a full 5-star because it's a little bit of a nitpick, but I wish there's a certain part in the ending that was a little bit explained. But other than that, highly recommend. Check out River. The River Has Roots by Amal Al-Motar. And that is it, y'all. That is it. That's all the books that I read in January and February. My gosh. I probably need to go back to doing monthly wrap-up videos, but probably not at the same time, because dang, y'all, that was a lot of books I had to talk about, and I DNF'd so many books. Oh my gosh. Never again, please. I don't want to DNF so many books within a few months ever again, at least for a wrap-up video. My gosh. But I did read some pretty good books and then some reading books, but so far nothing really actually bad I finished. And that's a thing for this year. I don't want to finish reading bad books. Oh my gosh. I will avidly DNF a book because I don't want to read such a terrible book ever again. My gosh. But that is it though. That is all that I've read, DNF'd, and paused in the past 2 months. Y'all let me know in the comments down below. How was January and February as your reading months? Read any great books, good books, bad books? I don't know. Y'all let me know. How was January and February? And how's March treating you so far? And yeah, this is gonna be the end of the video. Like the video if you like it, comment down below your thoughts, subscribe if you have not already. And if you made it this far into the video, you're not sure what to say, but you want to leave me an emoji to let me know you're here. Okay, I'm just gonna look in the top of my book stack here, but leave me a robot emoji for Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor, all right? Leave me a robot. Anyways, thank you all again for coming to this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.